afternoon and good evening. This is Radio.W.O.R.K.S World with your timing host, Ysanne Lewis. And how lovely to be speaking with you again. See, time seems to have flown since I last did. And obviously you might say, well, I should know about that, being the timing consultant, the timing expert. But you know, we are all timing experts. It's one of the simplest skills that we have. But like with many things in life, we complicate it. And I'm as guilty of that as anyone else. Sometimes we don't always trust if something is too simple, that it has validity, that it's real, that it's honest. Whenever we've met, and I know I have, what I call really wise people, they always have that simplicity. Often is accompanied by humour. Have you noticed that? Very important to keep that in mind, I think, as we go through our lives. And today, I want to talk about a couple of things. In my last talk with you, when I was hosting this show, I was referring to our inner timekeepers, our natural diaries. Now, I don't know how many of us keep natural diaries in terms of, I call a natural diary a book I write in, a journal, as well as things I've got coming up on the agenda. But I think when we are in touch with our inner timekeepers and natural diaries, and let's face it, our bodies come from nature. Think about that a moment. They come from nature. We are part of nature's cycles. Our souls are linked with the cosmos and beyond, I believe. But our bodies hold these natural diaries. In other words, we know what our cycles are, particularly relating to being whole making, at the physical level, mental level, emotional level. I feel with the soul level, this links in more with what is above, reflecting as a mirror what is below, giving us bigger clues as to our pathway. A subject which I absolutely adore talking about. I think we value time much better when we are in touch with what our bodies are telling us and cooperating with the seasons, even when sometimes they seem a little bit awry and they seem to merge into each other too much. Even taking an example of a plant and watching its cycles and growth can be very, very useful. When I took up astrology, which is my first label, if you like, when I was 27, I realized quite quickly that it was the language of the stars, astrologos, and a very old and wise subject. They say it goes back 2,500 years, but I think it's further than that. And I saw it like the queen of timing. And that what is above corresponds to what is below. It doesn't force us to do anything, doesn't take away our free will. And Carl Jung, the great psychologist, Swiss psychologist, where we get, of course, our Jungian psychology from, the schools of thought, talked about synchronicity, meaningful coincidences. And I truly believe that when we get meaningful coincidences, auspices, signs, if you like, we are on the right track. And sometimes it does mean slowing down. Everything gets done. Have you ever discovered that? We pace ourselves. We get out of our own way. There's so many schools of thought, if you like, who talk about that, meditation techniques. I feel intrinsically it is linked with our inner timing. And some people say, well, they're more au fait with their timing than others. They never seem to get their timing right, or they really do. I don't believe that. I think we all, coming from that inner core, that compass within us, can be much more in touch with that timing, and things, as a result, really fall into place. Now, I've been asked many times, either socially or with clients or giving talks. Why does time appear to be speeding up? Is technology part of it? The information's available at a touch of a key, isn't it? We go to get on a plane and we're there before we know it. We don't really do the journey. We say we're journeying, but our ancestors who walk somewhere or go by horse, they actually noticed much more along the route and were an integral part of that journey. Now, I'm not suggesting we go back to that. The world would have to change a great deal if that was to occur. But I'm sure that many of us have heard of the concept of the Schumann resonance. It's kind of global electromagnetic resonance, which is measured, and for a long while it's been at 7.83 hertz. The Hindus linked it to that resonance or frequency with the Om and to Earth Mother's heartbeat. Research that I've come across through quite a few channels has shown that in the last couple of years, that frequency has spiked to 8.5 and even up to 16.5. Now, just take a moment to feel that. If that's the resonance of Mother Earth and links in with our human brain, what is that doing, if you like, to us? Or, I don't like that word doing in this context. I rather prefer, what is it mirroring and what is it encouraging us with? Well, the 7.83 hertz is very much the alpha theta vibration, which is relatively relaxed and calm. And this spike links in with a fuller alpha state, which is quite calm, surprisingly enough, but also the beta, the faster, more alert frequencies. So there's a kind of a dichotomy going on. And again, I feel it's so important that we can take time to be aware of this, to take time, as I was talking about in my last show, for space, inner space, pausing, the pause between two words, between two thoughts, between two actions. Otherwise, states like dizziness, perhaps tiredness, certain stagnation can come about. Because adaptation to change is not always easy. We panic a little. So on the one hand, we're having planetary cycles in the heavens mirroring our need for growth, for acceleration, and the resultant chaos for a while, and we are seeing that in the world a lot, and a lot of fear. Fear can sometimes lead to hatred. And I think it's so important to look at where we mistrust things or people and to open up more to trust, to love, if you like. And this would help the whole situation, I feel, on a more global level. Because mistrust breeds, like mosquito swarms, but breeds more mistrust and thus hatred. And it's a very negative energy. So adapting to change at the moment isn't easy. And we often can feel quite isolated. And that's when we need to know we're part of a bigger picture. The nature cycles, the cosmic cycles. Very important. And one of the simple ways we can do that is by honouring, and I mentioned this last time about the lunar cycles, about that phase from new to full moon. At the moment, kind of breaking news, except it does occur once a month, we're just leading into a dark moon phase, 3 days before new moon on the 2nd of August. New moon will be in Leo, and the sun and moon, we call it conjunct. They're in the same sign. And the 3 days leading into it are when the moon isn't so visible. Even on the new moon, it's not that visible. It's the seed, it's germinating in the darkness. Photography develops in the dark. seeds germinate in the dark. And you may have found many times that when you want to have a difficult, an intimate conversation, it's easier to do it by candlelight or in a darkened space. It tends to create intimacy. And I think these 3 days coming up are very important for getting that balance between shining our light, getting out there if you like, and nurturing our inner world. And allowing a little bit of the retreat time, a little bit of the chaos if you like. Because if you allow a little bit of it, we can avoid the bigger. The more we actually resist, the bigger the problem can be if we're not addressing it. In my last show, I talked quite a bit about different aspects of astrology, of timing, where we can take space and time out. And I feel at the new moon time coming up on the 2nd of August, for all of us, because obviously this isn't a personal reading, it's a time in Leo of acknowledging the inner king or queen, not in a narcissistic way, but being able to shine the light on oneself a little more. And thus, by doing that, other people benefit. I wanted to mention the Schumann resonance to you because I feel it's quite important to be aware that we're all trying to adapt with that. That the heartbeat, if you like, of Mother Earth, of our brain frequencies are changing, and that it is part of the growth cycle we're in. It's exciting. It's making us more alert. It's a kind of waking up. We might say, oh, we all like to wake up. But that can be a little scary, can be too bright. And yet we are ready, otherwise it wouldn't be happening. I was thinking earlier about how as time goes by, quote the song, more and more, I know I do, in my 60s, I look backwards sometimes at how I've come to the place I am. I think that's natural as we get older. And I remember writing a blog some while back. I was asked to write one, letter to my younger self. Letter to my younger self. Have you ever done that? And it was very interesting writing it and how I worked with time. So the decades have gone by, and certainly there were turning points, crisis points, crossroads, which I could see through the planetary cycles and obviously the biological changes. So I just wanted to share a little bit, and maybe you can relate with it, about the advice I gave to my younger self. So this is what I wrote, and I'd love to share it with you. And the first thing that came up for me was never over-explain or stay in unpleasant situations because you think you'd made some kind of commitment or didn't want to upset others. Often it was the small everyday things that applied to, wasn't it? Then I went on to say to my younger self, know that you are pretty enough, and your strengths were your curiosity about life and enthusiasm and magnetism. And please know, younger self, that very few people are that confident inside, so don't be scared of them. They learn to put on fronts. We're all vulnerable, so don't be aloof or pretend so as to compensate. And never ignore you're being subtly bullied when you are. With time, younger self of mine, you will learn that showing your vulnerability in an authentic way and having a lighter touch and humour in scary and new situations draws the right people to you. Trust me, as this will happen. You always wanted a purpose in life, and indeed I, your older self, found it. And the journey is truly, truly more significant than the destination. Nope, you're not famous or rich, nor am I at 64. But the career which you chose at 27 as an astrologer has had purpose, richness, and fulfillment. And the young girl who wanted to be an explorer and performer has found that in travel, talks, and fascinating clients. And so, this is how your vocation will grow. My career as a timing advisor had many reinventions over nearly 4 decades. And would I have done things differently? In the main, probably not. I wanted to be self-employed initially, and after an acting background, office work, and having studied astrology for several years, tearing my hair out with the mathematics, pre-computer days, I took the leap with the great ease that comes with youth and adventure. In 1979, it was easy to find jobs. I never intended to stay with it long, but my bigger self thought differently. You see, a path with an authentic heart doesn't let you down. I found my chosen career grew organically because I always had natural curiosity, an understanding of how people tick, and capacity to make a subject innovative and applicable to other areas of life. You remember when you were a child, you lived in your inner world a lot, imagination and invention being companions, a love of patterns and maps. And I came to realize the controversial zone of astrology was in fact a treasure trove of intellect, psychology, and cycles linked with nature, finances, bodily rhythms, and creativity. Honor it, younger self. And this is what I wrote. And it just came. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is whatever age you are listening, that whether it's if you want to look back 5 years in your life, or in my case, nearly 40 odd, or whatever, that whatever you're doing, if it's a pathway with a heart, an authentic heart, if the timing feels right when you start it, there will be troughs and peaks. There's so many startup businesses now, and yes, it's not easy, but it has an authentic heart. And to look at the many ways you can apply your skills. I've had to. I won't say I've got a low boredom threshold, but to stick with a subject for so long, I had to make it interesting for myself. And so it led me to be creative, applying it to different subjects and people. I hope you're finding the same as well. So I think on that thought, I'm going to say goodbye for now. Enjoy the 3 days of the retreat time of the dark moon to see what wants to gestate, talk to you, and use next week, the 2nd of August and beyond, for really coming on stage more with who you really are. It's just a cycle that will move on, but is breaking news for now. So have lovely days.